IVM.
All right, another day, another week. We're here talking about everything under the sun, I guess. Yeah. So I actually, the reason I'm just going to talk about why we are talking about the topic that we picked today. Um, I was having a conversation with a couple of friends. In fact, after 12 years, my college, like not post grad, but my grad college uh, batch, basically, we did like a Zoom call yesterday, and I was like, oh my God, like dreading it because I hate human beings. And but so here's the thing.
Let's say I hate Zoom calls because I do.
Oh my God. No, but so it was a pleasant enough call. And the best thing was, two of my professors were on the call and it was fantastic. And it's what struck me was like most people were super genuine, but there was like 20% of the crowd that was all about just overplaying who they were and what they were doing. And then there was another 10% that was kind of trying to get at other people, just like snide comments and remarks to kind of point them. And a large part of it was what people are doing in life, where people have reached in life. And for example,
I hope you just described Romy and Michelle's high school reunion.
Oh my God.
That's the
oh
plot,
my God,
right?
I didn't realize that. Yes,
That's exactly the plot.
Jesus. So it was quite funny because, there was, it just got me thinking, especially under this COVID, scenario. And also, so I was in a class, which was, I think, around 50, which had 55-ish students. Out of which only 5 were, boys, and the rest were girls. And out of those 50, girls, a lot of them have, started, they have kids and all of that. And there was this one particular a woman who, yesterday, we were all talking about what we were doing and all of that. And suddenly, out of nowhere, okay, and no one has asked anyone, she suddenly points at me and says, "So Shunetra, why don't you talk about your kids?"
Oh, okay.
And it got me thinking that it's so strange that people's perspectives of ambition and where people want to reach in life and what people want from life is so devastatingly different that people are only too eager to pull someone down if someone hasn't reached their idea of, I wouldn't even say success. I don't think we are all working towards a place of success. I think we are working towards a place of contentment and their idea of contentment. And
it doesn't mean that they are devastatingly different. It's we who are the different ones. They all are the ones who conform and just have this idea that's how life is supposed to be, that you're supposed to go to college and then get married and then
so
go to work.
Here's the thing. I studied sociology, okay? And I was groomed, and this class was groomed by some very radical thinking professors. Like we used to talk concepts of how women maybe don't even need men in society. I mean, what role do men even have in their lives to aid them, except for help them in their offspring and like in terms of the offspring. And so we used to have very, very radical notions, and to have gone from that to someone who points out, and she's on my Facebook profile, she's seen my Instagram profile, she knows I'm an openly gay out person, and to make a taunt like that kind of got me thinking that, like, I was so tempted to say, honey, your ambition don't match my ambition, so don't even go there, because if I start, I'm going to rip you to shreds. But then I held back because, again, I just feel like we are all a product of things around us,
circumstances, conditions,
and conditioning. And so I thought it would be very interesting to talk about our takes on this concept of ambition and success and because we both have very, very different views on that. And I've had a very always evolving view on that. Like it's quite strange. So let's.
The more we discuss things, the more I realize that I love how many of the topics that we decide to talk about, like you are on one side of the spectrum and I'm on the other. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that because I already knew when you said you wanted to talk about ambition, I was like, this is entirely your episode, because I'll get to it why I don't believe in ambition. Like, leave alone like having it or not having it. I don't believe in ambition, but we'll get to that later. But I know you are, and I don't want to make an assumption for you, but you are a go-getter in that sense. You have an idea or a vision or at least a mental mood board of where you need to be and what you need to do. And I don't even have a shred of that. I don't have an inkling of that because I'm more Rolling Stone, I guess. Like, but when
so tell me, I mean, when you were, and again, I feel like, these concepts of where you need to reach and what you need to achieve, these start pretty early, right? Like around teens, your teenage years. So what were the things that were fed to you? And again, it's around you always, right? Like floating around you. So just take me through what was it that you were pummeled with, and what point did you reject that idea?
I'll tell you, it happened pretty early on, because one of the biggest fights in my house, I spoke about this, I think in the previous episode, where my dad just had no ambition. He just retired to open his library. You know what I mean? He was a person with no ambition, and I come from an extremely dysfunctional family, and dysfunctional families have certain fights that they keep on having over and over and over and over again. And I'd say in the top 3 fights in my house, one of the biggest ones was my dad's lack of ambition, especially my mom. She found that very stifling, that he did not want to think bigger or do greater. And the thing was, because of this skew, like how I was affectionate towards my father, and my father was a very caring, loving, soft-spoken, I always thought that I valued that more than what he does. You know what I mean? Like, I did not care about what I always valued. And the thing is, now I'm 35. I'm talking, this is when I was like my formative years, like 10 to 20, I'm saying. Like, I would see this fight repeatedly in my house, and I would always question, like, why is my mom so angry that my dad doesn't want to, like, do business ventures and, make money constantly? And I'm sure I get where my mom was coming from, because in the end, you are a man and you're supposed to provide and all. But my dad, you have to know him as a person to know that he's too chill, and chill in a way that he's content. He's one of those, he was out of the rat race even before there was a term like rat race. You know what I mean? He did not believe in this whole, he always figured it out. There was always great food on the table, and we were always provided for. We'd never like this. But it was just, and the thing is, what I'm trying to get at is I saw that at a very young age. And then 20 to 30, which are your career years in a sense, where you actually get your first proper job, and you are like, you've done enough things to start realizing that, holy shit, I need to fend for myself. I need to figure out, like, you need to make money. And I fell into the rat race. And the thing is, now that I see my dad at this age, like after all these years, it's somehow still, it's not changed that I don't feel that my dad should have had ambition even now, because he is literally one of the most content, happy, very like, he's not like, we could never buy a car, or he's never had any of those anxieties. He was just happy with how much he was, where he was, what he was. And I just felt like that is the kind of ambition I have to have, that kind of contentment. So, and I'm saying this as an answer to your question, because this has been a huge part of my family and my life, this conversation, like, of being a go-getter. And I know someday I might kick myself, like tomorrow, let's say, like in the immediate future, let's say I need a bypass surgery. and I don't have the money for it, I might kick myself that, holy shit, you should have made more money and stuff. But, if I put myself, what would my dad think? He'd just be like, it'll happen. You'll figure it out. I have that kind of attitude, which is, I wouldn't say chalta hai, but it's like everything falls into place. And I don't want to constantly torment myself with, these are my goals and these are my this and this is where I need to be in this many years and this is how much money I should have in my account and this is what my relationship status should be. It's lost on me as a concept, which might be unhealthy also. Like,
I don't even know, honestly, because again, I've seen people, work with this outlook pretty well. I've seen people with this outlook. Again, it goes both ways for either end of the spectrum, to be honest. And there is no method. And which brings me to what I've been kind of, mulling over the past, months or so, to say, the world's going to shit. And in the middle of that, how do you even sustain this sense of, I want to be this big achiever? How do you sustain that? And does it even matter? And then you start questioning that does it even matter? Does it even matter in the larger scheme of things? And as long as, you have your version of a strong roof over your head, as long as you have your version of, food on the table, your version of comfort and, that touch of luxury. What more do you want? Like, I think over the years,
like the touch of luxury.
No, but like that's the thing with me. And for me, when I was a kid, of course, my dad, and like, I don't come from like a rich family. I've seen struggles. I've seen my dad lose a job and not get a job for like 3, 4, 5 years at a stretch. And so I've seen all of that. And as a result of that, there were a lot of things that, especially when I was in grad college, I would see so many people, have access to so many things, which would bother me, which would, where I never had resentment for not having it. I just had this feeling develop that, what, I'm going to make sure that these things that other people have, I can have access to someday, which is why I started working so early, blah, blah, blah. And I think it began there. And slowly, gradually, I've gone, it's been ebbs and flows where, there have been some parts of, my life where I felt like, let me just coast for a bit. And then there have been some parts of my life where I've been on fire. And I think, like post, my late 20s, like 25, 26 onwards, it's, I let work consume me to an unhealthy level. Because for me, I couldn't see anything else. And there were a lot of things I was trying to, and I read this on Reddit actually this other day, that when it comes to, dealing with some unsolved, unresolved issues, human beings end up going one of 3 ways. One is drown yourself in work. 2 is drown yourself in in alcohol, and 3 is drown yourself in a passion. And for me, I chose drowning myself in work, and obviously I had a lot of things to work out, and I just felt like that was the best way to do it. And it kind of started with my mom's passing away, and like it continued. And since then, I think ever since I started therapy, I think I've had a lot more perspective on what's important.
Dude, sorry. The other day someone messaged me, and it was such a funny message. He said, "You guys are the Robin Hood of therapy," and I said, "What does that mean?"
What?
Yeah, I was asked him, what does that
mean?
I
got it.
And he said, you guys go to for people who can't afford, like, you guys go for therapy and water it down for us. And
oh my God. Okay, funny. So I had a thought on the pot. So wow, that's nice. Thoughts from the pot.
Thoughts on the pot.
Yeah, so I had a thought. We should really start a shorty section, which is basically my therapist says, because there's so much, and I like. I think we need to give royalties to our therapies, our therapists.
We don't.
So okay, so coming back to that point where. Ever since I started therapy, I think I started questioning what is important. And of course, feeling like I'm at, I'm in a certain place in life is important for me. But when it comes to the larger scheme of things, there are a lot of things that I've learned. It's not about, I used to be tear them apart, cutthroat, ambitious person. I am a lot more gentle in terms of my ambition now. I feel I've toned a lot of things down. Of course, I know I have responsibilities and duties, and those things are still very, very important. There is a very clear mental map of where I want to reach, but I feel like we need to just soften that harsh ambition out there. Yeah. So I think that's where I'm at right now, where I feel like. Compassion is important. Softness is important.
But that's compassion to yourself, you mean, in this case.
Yeah. Like, don't go so hard on yourself that you're constantly, the only answer you get is, no, this is not good enough. You need to try even harder.
Yeah, but see, that's what I'm talking about. Like, when I say that I don't have ambition, I've made peace with life, giving life also some control, because look at the situation we are in right now on a global scale. This is unprecedented. Like, nobody saw this coming.
No one prepared. Yeah,
millions and millions and millions. I have lost my job, but one of the reasons I feel like I'm still dealing kind of well with it, because if I was a neurotic, ambitious person who's constantly a go-getter, and then if all the things that have happened to me in this pandemic would have happened, for example, me losing both my jobs, my cat falling ill, you know what I mean? I would have been a nervous wreck. So when I say, like you said, compassion towards yourself, I made peace with the fact that, hey, I cannot. It's not like I don't have ambition to not do anything. It's just I made peace with the fact that it cannot be something that establishes my worth to myself, or my, or shows me, or is a meter for how well I'm doing in life, basically. Because it's like this out of your control happen, and what the fuck, you're suddenly handicapped. Like, what?
Yeah. No, so there's this beautiful clip that was going around on the internet, and so there's a RuPaul's Drag Race contestant called Shea Coulee. No, it's not a laughing matter.
I love Shea Coulee.
So she was out on the streets during the Black Lives Matter, protests, and there was something so important that she said that I'm an out Black person. And, I have been made to believe that I have value because of my talent. I have value because of what I present. I have value because of, everything that I have done on stage and beyond. And then she said something so important. She said, my value should not be tied into my talent. My value should not be tied into my, fame. Absolutely. My value should not be tied into my victories and achievements. It should be tied into the fact that I walk on earth. That's it. And that is so important, because we feel like we want more from people always, even if we don't have anything to do with people. Like,
and
why haven't you done more? Yeah, and who the fuck are we to expect from people? Like yesterday, I'll give you an example. There was one classmate of mine who I could sense so we were always a lot of us were speaking for the first time, in 12 years. So we were all sort of giving an intro on what we are doing, where we are, what we have been up to, and so one of my classmates, she kind of was a little hesitant here and there, and I kind of figured why, because in the midst of all of these, someone is doing this in life, someone's reached here in life, someone is working for the Ministry of India, this, that, someone's a VP of a company. In the middle of that, there is this one person who said, I was working with so-and-so NGO, and then after that, I got married and I had kids. And after that, I took a sabbatical. And I could sense the quiver in her voice, which was almost guilty to have done that. And she was almost apologetic for saying that. And then she said, that almost as a further apology, she said, oh, I'm by the, and she used to be she's still a fantastic dancer. She said, I took on, I've started doing online classes because that's my passion, and I had left it, and I'm just, now just focusing towards, that, like, that's my passion now. It's almost like she felt like she needed to clarify to all of us that, hey, I have an identity, and that's not a homemaker. Go ahead, be a homemaker, big deal. If you're comfortable with it, if you're okay with it, with that agency, then who are we to judge?
Exactly. Dude, but that's what I'm telling you. I don't know what episode number do you think we are on right now? Like, let's say this is episode 30. I'm not sure if it is, but let's say this is 30. I really feel like any of the topics we take, which are steeped in a problem, when you really boil it down, it somehow or the other always boils down to comparison. Like, and that is a cliche that everybody will tell you, that don't compare and don't this. But when you really look at any problem and you dissect it down to its nucleus, I really feel in the end, all you get out of it is that your problem is stemming out of because you compare yourself to an idea or a notion or a standard or a practice or a ritual. Absolutely. Or it just all but because look at this girl you're talking about. Why would she be embarrassed? It's okay, right? And see, we at least have the wherewithal to understand, or you do in this case, to like know that, listen, it's okay to, if you decided to take a sabbatical, you want to do what the fuck you want to do, because we learn that as LGBTQ peeps, we learn that everybody should have the right to do what the fuck they want. You know what I mean? But I feel like a lot of times it just is such a difficult mold to break out of, because how can you not compare in a time like in the world we live in? You cannot not compare. As long as media and advertising and corporations that tell you that you are better because your skin is fair, or you are better because you have this watch, or you are better, you know what I mean? As not just advertising, but you know what I mean? Every stimulus we receive is somehow designed to tell us that we are not adequate enough, like at any given point in life. And then mixed with ambition can be like, you know, where you are not adequate and you have to constantly strive for like some unrealistic. Again, I don't want to use the word unrealistic, because I don't think it's bad to have ambition, because I believe that there are people in history and even till now who envision who they want to be and they achieve it. But then I have learned not to compare myself to those people.
No, of course. I'll tell you where my ambition stems from. It doesn't stem from a healthy place. That's the thing. I think
you said that,
ambition is great when it stems from, you know, wanting to be a bigger person. But I was surrounded by, like, I went to Xavier's, Calcutta, and Xavier's is full of, again, it's one of those very Riverdale kind of places where you have like camps and groups and all of that, and you know, the people who I would hang out with, and this is nothing against them, some of them are like my closest friends today, but one or two of those people who I am not in touch with used to make me feel so bad about not having certain things, for example, if someone would make a plan to go out, for pub hopping, I'd never have the money for that. I never had the money for that. And I would question, and it would, I remember one of them, and I don't think I've ever brought this up with her, but I remember her saying, my God, why do you, like, what, you don't get pocket money or what? And I was like, no, I don't. I really don't. And she thought I was joking. Like she basically made a big deal about how I'm miserly and things like that. And it just would break my heart every single time because I didn't have enough. And it just drew me up the wall, and it just consumed me. So it's not, ambition doesn't always come from, more often than not, it doesn't come from very healthy places. So we need to address it. We really need to address it. And I think our way of paying it forward is to make sure we don't make someone feel like that. And
that's the thing about it. Like, think about, it's definitely one of those things where, okay, what's the end goal of ambition? To have a certain quality of life, I'm assuming. Like, that's the end goal, right? To be able to have this or that, or whether it's travel or sufficient amount of food on the, whatever it could be, the reason for ambition. I also just know that I have friends who have all those things, and I have a good feeling that it's one of those things in life that it rears its head. So let's say you do achieve something, suddenly something else will become problematic to you in your life.
Never stops. It never does.
It never does. Yeah, I don't know how it works, because and here I am saying things like, oh, I'm not ambitious and all of that, but trust me, I spend so much time putting so much weight on my own shoulders, or put myself on a pedestal where I expect so much out of myself so many times that it crushes me. And I'm sure everybody does that we all expect things like, for example, this whole, this whole discourse when the pandemic had started about, hey, it's okay if you don't write your book, in this pandemic, or you don't, there was this whole kind of phase where everyone was like, don't put stress on yourself if you find yourself constantly bored and stuck at home and all of that, right? And now it's been like 3 months, close to 4 months, I don't know. And now it's like, now what? Like, I've still not written anything, and I still don't this, so I do put myself under that. It's something you can't help, I guess. How we talk about body positivity, it's a repeated exercise every day. You have to, like this. I feel even keeping an eye on, hey, are you being too hard on yourself? Are you expecting too much out of yourself? I feel that also falls under this ambition umbrella, a lot of times, because I have to repeatedly remind myself, Farhad, you're putting too much weight on yourself. You're putting too much. Even sometimes I'm watching TV shows, and because I'm trying to be a script writer, I realize that while watching the TV show,
you're not enjoying it.
No, I spiral into this constant thought process. Shit, that is such a smart dialogue. I could have never written it. Holy shit, when are you going to write your script? Holy shit, you still not written your script. Holy shit, and then suddenly next thing you know, the episode is over, but I've spiraled into some different thing into my head only, So, coming back in my mind every time from that walk that I take suddenly, in the wrong direction, I feel like that's an important habit to develop, that it's okay. It's okay if you're not achieving. Things have a way of falling into place. Like, and my shrink, the first 10 years that he's told me that, Farhad, things fall into place, I wanted to smack his head against the table. Like, just grab his hair and bang it on the table. Like, shut the fuck up. Nothing's working out. But the thing is, here I am 10 years later, and things have worked out in some way or the other. So now I know what he means. Like, of course, I still have immense paranoia that someday I might end up homeless, for example, or, like that kind of paranoia. And it's real. Why shouldn't I believe that I cannot be homeless someday. You know, if I don't go all out and shooting for the moon so I land on the stars or whatever that kind of bullshit is. But I also realized that while I'm not homeless, I can't beat myself up or be scared that someday I'll be homeless.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, I should just enjoy being in a home.
It's like the anxiety that you get from thinking when will I get anxiety.
Yeah. And I had this so many times. I would tell my friends that, because again, like you said, this pub hopping thing, there are so many times my friends enjoy the nicer things in life. Okay. They don't go swimming to YMCA. My friends are like, suddenly they'll call me on a Sunday, hey, we are going to the Hyatt for a swim. And that's like some $2,500 for a day of swimming. I'm like, $2,500 is a month's worth of cat litter for me or cat food for me. You know what I mean? I'm not going to spend that and I'm not going to spend $2,500 to go swimming for a day and the whole day feel miserable that my body is not as good as everyone else's body in the swimming pool. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, even if I decide to spend that $2,500. So, but the thing is that my friends have that lifestyle and they enjoy it. And I developed this habit of telling myself and telling them that, listen, I'm at a point in life where I'm okay with being broke. I'm okay with not having money. But when it becomes an anxiety, when I suddenly need some medical emergency has happened. Like it happened to me 3 years ago where I had a small cyst growing in my jaw. Okay, that's actually around the time I quit smoking, by the way, because we had to remove a cyst from my jaw. And Srinetra, I was so broke in life that I had to ask my brother and mother for money. Okay. And can I tell you something? My brother and mother are lovely people, but because of some reason, and I can't get into it, they both said they can't give me that money. Okay. And suddenly I was like, okay, fuck, what? Because here's the deal. The dentist had told me that if we don't remove this in the next 6 months, this cyst, we will have to externally remove it. Right now, it was an internal surgery. But basically, long story short, if they would have to externally remove it, I would have had a lifelong dent in my chin. Like a proper crater in my chin where the cyst. Dude, you won't believe it. I somehow, with the little bit of money that I had, my brother did come through and did give me a little more than some money. You know what I mean? But can I tell you something? A surgery that I was supposed to go, like I had to spend overnight in the hospital basically to get it done. Like, what is it? General anesthesia basically. So if they give you general anesthesia, then by that you have to spend a night in the hospital, whatever. And insurance doesn't cover it, by the way. So you know what I had to do? I had to go through the surgery while I was awake, just so that it would be cheaper.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I opted that, and the oral surgeon was like, are you crazy? Like, he said it's fine. My only question back then was, can I do this awake? Like, if I'm saving 75 grand suddenly, so that I don't have to spend a night in the hospital and whatever, can I do this awake? And the surgeon said, yeah, but it could be traumatic,
Yeah.
And I had to do it, Srinitra. I sat through right now it feels 20 minutes, but I know it went on for an hour with my mouth wide open, my eyes open, and it was so fucking traumatic and painful because it was a tooth-related thing. But I just sat through it. And can I tell you something? In that moment, I beat myself up so badly for being broke, for never being ambitious, for never figuring my life out. I just remember that guy was sawing away with metal tools in my mouth. And the only thing going through my brain was not the pain, but me constantly beating myself up that I had not figured it out in life,
Wow.
But, and this became a huge topic in my therapy about how I can't rely on my family. They did not come through financially. I had to do this. I had to do that. But now it's been 3 years and things worked out. You know what I mean? I'm in zero pain right now. The surgery happened. I don't have a giant dent in my face, like a smoker packet. You know what I mean? things work out. But if I had to, why am I telling you this entire story? If you were in my head in that dentist chair and how I beat myself up during that surgery, holy shit, it was, I felt like I might be my worst enemy when I say that. Like the amount I hurt myself with the kind of vitriol that happened in my head against myself for being incompetent, not having had achieved anything. Not so. Again, what I'm trying to say is my money, my issue with now this has become a financial conversation, but it is steeped in ambition. But a lot of times my problem has been that I just want enough money to be okay in situations like this, maybe afford a sushi once in 6 months. Even that's too much. That's a touch of luxury, like you put it earlier. But I'm saying the basics. If my bike gets spoiled, if my cat falls ill, if my, and that's the thing, my cat did fall ill this year. And now this is 3 years after the surgery. And trust me, the first thing my head again started doing, you can't provide for your cat. I had to do a fundraising campaign. And, but this time I did not beat myself up. I, in fact, just saw it like, holy shit. Like, people came together. You were one of the people, that. Like, everybody just came together. And I just understood, I took comfort in the sense of community and how things worked out. And this time I just in real time saw how things are working out for me instead of realizing it years later. So I think
it's such a beautiful emotion to be fearless, And I think I cannot help but think that ambition often stems from a deep-rooted sense of fear. I think they're interlinked. A fear of not achieving something is what drives us. A fear of not being able to provide is what drives us. A fear of not having that thing that I promised myself or promised someone is what drives us. And for me again, I know that if you go by a textbook example of ambition, I tick those boxes in terms of out there, go get all of that. But there are so many things that have fallen into perspective for me now, and I question all of these. I question the negativity. I don't see this idea, this narrative of me just and I know a lot of people will think, hey, chal, gas mat de. But this idea of just giving everything up and just, becoming a recluse in like the mountains somewhere, and not recluse as in apne luxury home mein, like a monk in the mountains. Where I'm doing something for the society. I don't think that's a very distant narrative. I don't think that's something that's totally impossible for me. I might reach there someday. I want to enjoy as much of life as possible. But once I'm done, I guess I'm done. That's where I'm at. Like it's.
Can I be that annoying guy at a party? You're at a party, you just want to have a chill time, and then there's always that one guy who suddenly wants to talk about meta heavy things. Can I just say? Yeah. Can I be that person for a second?
Sure.
I have repeatedly read about, and now this is the larger conversation which I wanted to get to later. I have repeatedly read, and I truly believe, Shunetra, a lot of times. Okay, I'm saying this. Counting ambition and purpose in life as one thing. Okay. Passion in life is different. I'm just saying if ambition, and a lot of times what has happened is that line has been blurred now. What we think is ambition and being ambitious is suddenly meaning that you find your purpose in life, and then that purpose, say you figure out how to make money, and in that sense you're ambitious. I feel, but I repeatedly think this is an idea that has been put in your head by a capitalistic planet.
I agree.
You're entirely, and sometimes now if you zoom out entirely of this conversation, and if you ask the bigger question, is it okay to not have purpose in life? I started answering that early on.
And I see, it's a very clear thing for me. Okay, if you ask me, have I found my purpose in life? I still haven't. I mean, I may have had some semblance of it. Like, I've always wanted to tell stories, and as of now, at this living moment, I am doing part of it. But is this something that drives me as
quenches that
thirst?
Yeah.
Hell no. And I don't know when I will find that raging purpose, or if I will find that raging purpose.
I have a question for you.
Say.
I know this about you. I know this because I've hung out with you a little. Like, you are a work-oriented person. Your work is important to you. You take your calls, you do your meetings. I know you really, and you are always on the. So I feel like there are some people who are on the back burner. I feel you are a person who functions on the front burner. Am I right? Or I feel like you are making sure everything's happening according to this. And I just want to know, if you were not doing what you are doing right now in life, what do you think you would have been doing or would rather be doing in life if this is not it?
So I don't know what I would rather be doing.
Okay, that's
fine. But yeah, there are so many other things. I would stick to the creative field because I don't know anything else. I can't, I can't talk money from Adam. Like, hello. So here's the thing. I've dabbled in different fields. I started out as a journalist.
Jack of all trades.
So I think I would have been, I don't know, an AD in an ad production, like in a production house, or one of those things. I do think that if I came from a more affluent family, I would have not films. I would have. I really wanted to get into either fashion design or interior design. My family didn't have enough money to send me to one of those places, and so I had to figure. I paid for my my postgrads. I paid second year onwards.
You did it on your own.
Yeah, so I never had the money to not stay in Calcutta. So I've always also thought of if I had to enter a college. I wanted the best. I did want, absolutely, like, to study sociology. Xavier's is the best college. I mean, there are other people who will say, no, my college is the best. But just like, whatever. But so I think if I came from a more affluent family, I definitely would have had fashion design, couture, that kind of a career, also because that requires a serious amount of corpus to kind of get your business started. Corpus ki to maa ki, matlab, like, hello, I didn't have money to go into a cafe coffee day when I was in college, so fuck you. I think, what about you? Like, if you weren't
before we get to me, I don't know why. Obviously you would fucking excel as a fashion designer, you know that. I don't know why. I always, for you, I imagined as I can totally picture you being a film director. I don't know why. Like, there's something about you that is so film directory. I might be totally wrong. Can I tell you a funny incident from my life? I got done with college, okay? And you know how it is, mostly in colleges, like, you immediately start looking for a job, or some colleges, those companies come to your college and you get jobs, whatever. Dude, I was so lost. Me and my friends were so lost because we were stoners back then. We had no idea what we wanted to do. And I remember telling my parents that I want a year off after college to undo education. And my mom from the get-go was like, no fucking ways, because she was already having issues with my father for not being ambitious, and suddenly I'm being like, at 22 only, he's like, I want a year off, and not even like to backpack in Europe or something. why do I say Europe? I hate it when I say Europe. Every time I end up saying Europe.
Europe and Merope.
I don't know why every time I say Europe first. It is so annoying. But basically, I wanted to just take a year off to do nothing, just sit at home, play on my PlayStation. And my mom every single day was like, get the fuck out, you're leeching off on us. And my dad on the side was very like, Farhad, you want a breather, take a breather. Dude, that 1 year became 2 years, that 2 years became 3 years, and suddenly I fell into this, it's almost paralytic. I don't know. You've paid for your own education, you've gone through that, so I can imagine that you had a certain trajectory you were on, but I suddenly reached a point where I had no idea what I wanted to do in life. And I know a lot of people go through that. Like, they just have no clue. College is done, now the fuck what? Like, what do I do? Because either your parents will dictate what you want to do and you don't want to do that. Because obviously my mom was doing MBA. Back then, doing an MBA was the shit,
Yeah.
And for me, the stress that, oh my God, MBA costs like 3 lakhs, 4 lakhs. And this is in 2001 when 3 lakhs, 4 lakhs were way more than what 3 lakhs, 4 lakhs is now. There was no way. The pressure that my parents might spend this money and then I would have to study business, no fucking way. So I was retirement, 2-3 years have gone by, and my mom decided to take me to a career counselor. And we went, this is a bizarre story. We went to a career counselor and she left me in this room and he started talking to me, and then he gave me an aptitude test. Have you ever taken an aptitude test?
No.
Basically, an aptitude test is something that roughly tells you what professions you might be good for. Like, what might be good
Got
for
it.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. He gave me an aptitude test. I took that test, and you know what the result was? I should be a career counselor.
My God.
I was even more lost suddenly. Like, I was like, I am so lost in life. Why is he telling me I need to tell other people what they should be doing with their life? But in retrospect, I kind of get it why, because I'm very good at giving advice to other people, but fuck that. I totally imagine you being a film director. I don't know why.
I've always had fascinations.
Cinema, Oscars, clothing.
Like
all everything that you are. You are putting that cinematic.
Like this whole like universe together, and of course I'd say that's like one of the best compliments I've ever received.
And hi, Bengali.
Oh jeez,
you have a natural. It's hardwired in you to be a filmmaker in some way.
I know where that would come from, and I've again thought about it, but there were a lot of things. Again, I needed to fend for myself from the day I stepped into Bombay.
Dude, I was just going to get to that. Boils down to the city then.
It is, and I knew that. So there are two things. Okay. One was I've spoken about this. I always have had an intense fear of, straight men around me, because I have been at the receiving end of abuse from them. And so when I was starting out my life, it was very clear that I would need a life where I can live alone. Jitna bhi chota apartment ho. Matlab, sure, it can be a shanty, chawl. That's absolutely fine. But I needed to live alone. And in order to afford that by myself, I needed a steady income. And director banne ke liye to steady income, boss, matlab, please. You have to go through that rigor.
And it's not even something you can do on the side. You know what I mean? It's not like music.
It takes over your life. Yeah.
It's not like music. You can have a regular job and side mein, or stand-up comedy or something, where you can pursue it side mein thoda.
Absolutely. So it was a decision that I will do something that that's closest to what this thing is, where all my talents kind of converge, or not talents really, all my interests converge. I love writing,
design,
cinema, when I'm making ads, I have a pretty strong vision on what what the aesthetics are, what the art is like, what the costumes are like, what the makeup is like, the cinematography, the editing. So it's come together, and I'm absolutely.
See, but you're in the ballpark. If I can,
yes.
I don't know why I'm suddenly giving you advice, but like you are in that ballpark.
Yeah, absolutely.
Already. And it's very natural for your trajectory to go from being into ad films or advertising. Not millions, obviously, but so many people I know
have done that.
Started off as copywriters, ended up as ADs, ended up as directors, and now are movie filmmakers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you are at least on the right track, baby.
But would you ever want to do this counseling thing as a career?
No. I'm like, I was watching Frasier recently for the first time. I've never seen the show, and I feel like I'm a pop psychiatrist. You know what I mean? Like, I'm good with like dispensing advice over the counter. You know, I'm like Crosin. For the real stuff, you need prescription. But if you want something over the counter, come to me. Like I'm good with that. So no career counseling. My passion is writing, but I don't feel I've procrastinated so much on it. And that's why what I want to say towards the end of this podcast is that it's so diabolical what I want to say, that it is great on one level if you have set your mind, if you know something will give you happiness by doing it every single day for the rest of your life, please work towards it. But always remember that if things don't go your way, just be empathetic to yourself. You know what I mean? Like, just learn to like, because, and where this conversation repeatedly, what it's reminding me of, there was a very sweet debate that came out after Gully Boy had released, which was, there was this one shot in Gully Boy where Ranveer Singh is in a train and he's got his headphones on and he wants to be a rapper, but he's doing a 9-to-5 job. And I remember reading this tweet thread about a guy who wrote about why are 9-to-5 people constantly shown like these are people who have extinguished their passions and extinguished their desires and some people are just born to just be boiled through life, and that should be normalized, I feel.
I really absolutely agree.
This whole tremendous, first of all, individualism, again, I don't want to make this like larger conversation, but the concept of individuality and you are so an individual and you are responsible for your own happiness and you are responsible for pursuing your own dreams. And
that's fucking
that
cool.
It's not even bull. It's a crazy amount of pressure to put on.
Absolutely. No, and firstly, though, on one hand, there is this pressure to be an individual. On the other hand, when someone goes out and, becomes an individual, then you have to be an individual that's just the right amount of individual and not, just enough to be part of society and not go against the society. So just come on.
And that's the thing, Shreyendra. Even in that, somehow once it's like, again, I hate bringing this up again, but when I was a smoker, I tried everything to quit smoking. But when I actually was able to quit smoking is when I surrendered. Like, when I surrendered, I understood. And in that sense, I achieved what I wanted to do, which is quit smoking. Yeah. And I feel even career-wise, like sometimes, until not very long ago, if I had to send my portfolio and my resume out, like CV, I would get immense like anxiety, you know. But now in the past 3-4 years, when I look at my resume, I actually look at myself as a very interesting person. And I, again, like I told you that you are in the ballpark and it has a certain trajectory. Like I feel like somehow or the other, when I look at it on a piece of paper, my entire work life written out, like it's actually great. Like I've been a chef, I host podcasts, I've been a copywriter, I've been a digital writer, a social media writer, content writer. Now I'm trying to be a screenwriter. You know what I mean? Like I look at it and I feel like while I'm living through those years, it felt like, where is my life headed? What am I doing? I'm not writing enough. I'm not writing the right things. I'm writing shit stuff. I'm writing for ads, and I'm writing for... Dude, I actually once worked on a campaign for a vaginal tightening cream. So that, you can imagine what I felt as a writer back then, that in a world where Fair and Lovely was already there and problematic, suddenly someone was trying to come into the market with a vaginal tightening cream, and we had to pitch to them, and I had to write headlines for that.
Wow.
Like, so that was the time I really questioned, where did I end up as a writer? Where did I this? But now, after all these years, can I tell you something? I have accepted that I'm a good writer, and I will do something in writing, and I will write something. Like, that's it. Like, I'll just skate through it. You know what I mean? It'll come. It's my purpose in that sense, or my passion. Sorry, not purpose. Purpose is the wrong word. My passion has somehow over the years emerged on its own. You know, I know that I will do exceptionally well, and I will feel immensely rewarded the day I put out a TV show or a movie that my friends and my family and whoever messages me saying, that was amazing, Farhad, thank you. But until that happens, I am not going to fucking stress myself out. I'm going to let it slide, because I think that is so important sometimes. In a world that's constantly putting stress on you, you've seen these hydraulic press videos on Instagram. You know, I sometimes feel like that's the amount of pressure we end up putting on ourselves when it comes to figuring out what you're supposed to do. And that is terrible. That is terrible. If you see hydraulic press videos, that is not a good way to get crushed. It is the worst way to get crushed.
True.
So I don't know. I just, over time, I feel, and sometimes I feel like, again, I'll kick myself at 50 maybe, that why the fuck were you not more hardworking and more this and more that and more that. But a lot of times I feel like I had the right role model in my father, in that sense that, dude, he was content with the most dysfunctional family, the most unhappy marriage, with the most everything like was going against him. But even now, when I see my dad just quietly reading a newspaper on a Sunday, smiling, drinking his chai, I just feel that is contentment. You know what I mean? Like, that man is happy. That, and my dad has never had a wallet in his life. Can I tell you something? My dad always keeps money in his breast pocket in his shirt. And
that's so adorable.
You know what I mean? Like, I just, there's something like about those little things that makes me feel like that is the right thing to strive for, because then whether I have more money, I figure it out, I have no figure it out. If I don't have that, when I'm old, I will just feel like my life was a waste. You know what I mean? If I'm just not okay when I'm old, that, holy shit, you know, I just want to be content, man. And
no, I agree. Contentment
like
is what we should look for.
Yeah, and therapy and all these things we put ourselves through, and self-love and self-this. I feel my entire focus in some way has constantly been the past couple of years to just be nicer to myself, kinder to myself.
No, I 100% agree. And I'll tell you, like, this is like on an ending note, I'll say this, that one of my biggest progresses has been to know that at work, especially, you cannot be you can't make everything perfect, or your version of perfect, or a masterpiece every single day. It is okay for the graph to go up and down, and you need to be okay with your graph to be up and down. And I would never give myself that concession. And can you imagine what that can do to someone? It is like, with the slightest move away from the intended path, I would get intense anxiety that, oh my God, now this will not be perfect. If it is lesser than perfect, then it's, so there is either perfect or it's bullshit. Like, there is no just less than perfect, and we can maybe make it work. And that's still something I'm working on in a massive way, where I'm learning to lose control, and I'm learning to let go. But I've realized that, and I feel that that's like one step forward. And I yeah, I think that's one of the things that we need to normalize, not being perfect, not being this 100% all the time. Yeah.
And what better fucking teacher right now in life
Oh
than
my
this
God,
pandemic?
yes. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Can I give you an example? One of my really good friends, around 3 years ago, got divorced. He was married. He found out his wife was cheating. He got divorced. Yeah. His life just suddenly, he lost his job after a while because he was so affected by this divorce. He lost his job. He suddenly had to move back in with his parents. It wasn't working. He's almost 40, by the way. So imagine a 40-year-old having to move in back with his parents, and he wasn't getting along with his parents. So he moved in with his grandparents. He was extremely close with his grandparents. They popped it one by one, both his grandparents, over the next 2-3 years. And I'm not kidding, in Jan this year, he finally got a job for 3 years. He tried some odd businesses. He had losses, everything. Yeah. He suddenly found a job in Jan. Okay, finally. And we all was so happy for him because he was constantly, we saw him struggling post-divorce to get his life back on track, basically. Yeah. He finally got a job, the money he wanted, because again, he had not worked in 3 years. So a lot of times he was having a tough time trying to get people to match up to his salary, what he had 3 years ago, So now he's got this job. Jan happened, Feb happened, March happens, and the pandemic happened. And across the board, there were pay cuts. And suddenly he had to go for a 60%, a 50 or a 60% pay cut, to a point where it made no sense because he moved back to Bombay. He had to move out of Bombay, by the way, when he lost his job because he couldn't afford living in the city. Moved in back with his parents. And now he was like, wow, I got a job again. He got a house back in Bombay. And within a span of 3 months, what he felt, okay, my life is back on track, it's suddenly through such a curveball. Dude, I feel like I can feel his disappointment right now. You know what I mean? That, oh my God, I'm back at square one. I'm this. And somewhere I just send like mental vibes to him that, hey, it's okay. I know what you must be going through. Don't be too harsh on yourself because, dude, this is again
there's been no precedent. Like,
there's no precedent,
know how to prepare for this.
Literally, right now more than ever, you understand what random chaos this planet is and this universe is. Like, literally, we are recording this podcast a day after Kanye West has announced that he's running for president. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, it is bizarre. This whole world is a bizarre place. And in that, if you can just be a friend to yourself in some way, and not beat yourself
very
up,
important.
it's bearable. It's bearable. Yeah. Then the randomness is bearable and affordable and everything you can imagine. Like, it's okay if you are by your side.
Yeah, true. And, I agree. I totally agree. And I think, let's take this week and more to just be kinder to yourselves and not put so much pressure. And see, there are things that are obviously that we work for, that is, just like the basics, like, food, shelter, clothing, and we work for that sustenance. Anything beyond that is fine. Take your time. I think that's all I'll say, because we deserve a little time off. We deserve a little concession given the world that this world has become.
And that's how much this pressure to be relieved, that's how much it needs to be normalized. Because right now, when you're saying this, Shanitra, I'm feeling guilty that are we giving the wrong message? Because there are people who can't afford the liberty of taking a break, or like not taking a break, but like taking it easy and don't be hard on yourself. You have to constantly be ambitious. You don't have a choice, but to like be ambitious in life, because you have to either provide or whatever. But I just feel like, again, we've given two contrasting, like, you have your ideas of what ambition is, I have the other end. And I feel like if anyone can fall under this spectrum and relate to what either you feel or I feel, that's what this episode is
enough.
about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Today is chicken biryani in my house, so I'm gonna go marinate some chicken.
I'm making chicken rezala in my house.
Ooh, so, look at us. We are like Najma and Rabina. Can I ask you a question? And this is one of those things I don't want to Google. Okay.
Sure.
You've seen Kuch Kuch Hota Hai.
Yeah.
Shah Rukh Khan professes his love to Kajol only to say that actually it's Rani Mukherjee that he's in love with. Okay? Kajol comes crying, running. Okay? I'm not even watching the movie. I'm not even Googling this because it turns out I've asked everyone this question and everybody has a different idea about this. Okay? Kajol comes running back to her hostel. She's crying and there's the matron. Yeah? I'm not going to say it. Yeah, she's there and Kajol slumps by this pole or a pillar and she goes, Mera pehla pyar adhura reh gaya blank. What's her name?
Yeah.
What's her name? No, tell me.
Wait. Mera pehla pyar adhura reh gaya. Something Paji or Baiji or something that.
She's not a Sardar, Surendra. She was
no, I mean... it was... Wait. It was something... it was a very weird... like, it was like a nickname, but... some bai.
Okay, so...
like some
in
bai.
My head, she says, Mera pehla pyar adhura reh gaya Rafat bhi. Okay? But then I asked my friend...
Nusrat B. No. Nusrat was...
Rafat.
It was a very... It was...
See, that's the thing. Now, you said Nusrat B. I felt it's Rafat B. I asked my friend randomly that day we were so bored on a phone call. I was like, what do you think the matron's name in Kuch Kuch Hota Hai was? She said her name was Ifat B. And everyone has a different idea of what that name is. Oh my God.
This is like Nelson Mandela and his death. Like, everyone...
Yeah. Nobody knows when he died.
When he died. Like, oh my God.
So you are Nusrat B. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is one of those things I'm not going to Google. Like, let it
just simmer. Okay. On that note, everyone, please have a relax is too much to ask for, but please have a normalized weekend and just breathe in, breathe out, so that this dumpster fire of a year can just float by.
So you're a dumpster fire. It's a garbage fill fire. Like a landfill. A landfill
fire.
Yeah,
true that. Yep.
Okay. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next week. Okay, bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that show. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money and Intel. So, been a really exciting week on the network this week. We've had some really cool stuff. My old friend Vivek Lad was on Storytellers and Storysellers. Definitely do check that out. On Cyrus Said, we had Ashwin Sanghi on Thursday's episode, and Cyrus and myself did a cock and bull, just the two of us. That was fun as well on Monday. Do check that out. Masaba was on Advertising is Dead, which was another really, really strong episode from Varun. And on the sports front, both Edges and Sledges, Football Shitball had some really fun episodes. That's the Football Twaddle. Do check those out as well. And if you haven't been paying attention and you haven't been listening to Smile India in these times, I don't know why you aren't. It's the most uplifting show that you could listen to. It's a short, bite-sized piece of really positive things that happen in India. Do definitely check that out. And with that, we hope to see you again next week.
Namaskar, this is Ashish Vidyarthi. Yes, my friend, these are challenging times, but in these challenging times, we can create something extraordinary. Do take time to listen to my podcast, Begin the Journey. Available on the IVM Podcast, website, app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Remember, we have a great opportunity called life. Cheers.